I don't too much talk about relationships on this platform because I know from experiences is that relationships are very complex, right? There are like many sides to the story. Everybody's not being truthful about their experiences, or should I say what happened in that experience. What I do want to talk about is dating in your 50s. Hello all. I am Queen Yashika of Listen, hello and welcome to Hood Parenting. I am your host, Yashika. They call me Fairy Godmother, honey. And today is a Porch Conversations. And so, what I want to talk about is dating in your 50s. That's what I'm going through. I'm going through that dating in my 50s. I'm 53. Here's what I need people to understand there are still women in the world that understands what our forefathers and foremothers consider to be ladies or ladylike. And here's what I mean by that. I used to tell my second husband. Now here's the thing: we both worked. We both made about the same amount of money, the whole 9 yards. Okay, but I used to tell him this is how I felt about our relationship. Now, granted, we were both able humans, able-bodied adults. They can do anything. Okay, but what I would tell him about our relationship is, if you look up and there's no toilet paper in the house because somebody forgot to go shopping, then I blame myself, because I feel that there are just certain things that as a woman that I'm supposed to do. Now, does that mean that he can't do it? Of course it doesn't mean he can't do it. He can go to the store as well, but for the most part though, I took pride in doing certain things, right? Now, the term to that is, if he looked up and there was no toilet paper in the house because we couldn't afford it, then it's his fault. So that's how I saw it. Now, granted, could I afford toilet paper? Yes, all of the things. But I was just trying to make sure that he understood that I understood that there was just certain things that traditionally, I'm not saying in everybody's family, but in the families that he and I both grew up. He grew up with his grandparents, and so did I, right? Being pivotal role models in our lives. And so there was just certain things, like even when I was upset with him, I would still fix his plate. Okay. So anyway, with that being said, there are women who still want to be that idea. So what makes me think about this and decided to do this, and I really hope you guys can hear me, because my neighbor decided now was the perfect time to mow his yard. Okay, whatever. We're good. He can do. He have the right. Okay, but anyway, so time come. I was at home and I was having a conversation with I was putting up some lights at my mom's house because we were going to have 2 weekends back to back where we're going to celebrate there, a birthday party and then a birthday party. The 4th of July. And so we were putting up the lights, my aunt and I. And my aunt is my girl, okay? She and I, like, that's my what we call my road dog. I'm the one going up and down the ladder. She's more or less just like handing me the light bulb so we could put up there and praying that I don't fall, right? So that's pretty much what we did. So when we were like 75% of the way through, my uncle came out of the house, and then by that time one of my aunt's friends had found her, so he came and stopped and was like, hey, what are y'all doing? And so it was this part where he started saying, they started telling us what we wasn't doing right. Now, mind you, we had already put up the majority of the lights, okay? Because we had put up 3 of the 4 lights by this time. They started telling us what we wasn't doing right. And so, well, actually, we were in the process of putting up the 3rd one. And it was one of those things like, we've done this so far. I mean, well, but come on. But I was like, but come on. Because, listen, I know, listen, come on. Y'all come on. And so the man, okay, my uncle, he started more or less putting up the lights, but the gentleman of my aunt's friend, he was very determined to do something, right? Now, he wanted to move the ladder because, again, I needed a ladder to get from point A to point B because of the distance of the light. He wanted to move the ladder. And my auntie kept saying, no, we got it. So I said, no, auntie, let him do it. Listen, let him do it. And baby, please believe this man was already inebriated. And it was only about noonish, okay? He was already inebriated. So when he picked that ladder up, okay, he was moving it, he was shaking. Listen, I was not going to interrupt his moment to be a superhero to my aunt and I. I was not. I didn't give a doggone if he fell over, with the latter, I was not going to interrupt his super moment time. I wasn't. His superhero moment time. I was not. Who am I? Listen, he wanted to impress. He had never met me before. He wanted to impress, and I guess he was trying to impress my auntie because she said she's someone she just knows. So I don't know what it was, but he was trying to impress us, and I was okay with it. And so what I did know is that they wanted to be, and I was okay with it. Because when we got done, it was like, okay, well, whatever, y'all good, we good. Listen, we just wanted the lights up there. I don't care how they got up there. I don't care what it looked like. Listen, we just wanted. But another reason that made me think about this was today I was experiencing a conversation now. 2 conversations within a matter of moments, okay? Now, I am a veteran, and so because I am a veteran, I go to the VA hospital frequently. And because I've been here in this area cumulatively about 15, 16 years, the time that I was still serving as well as the time that I've been out now, I know a lot of people in the area, especially veterans. And so a lot of times you will run into them in the VA hospital. And so there was a conversation where I was having it with one guy where, of course, he asked me, about was I married? And I knew him because I've had a conversation with him before, but I couldn't remember. But it was like one of those things where he didn't say anything further, so I didn't say anything further. But the second part that got me was a conversation that I had with someone else. Now, this gentleman, I know that I knew him from before, but I don't know where. I don't know where I knew him from, but I knew him, and I think that at the time I knew him, he was a civilian and I was a soldier, but we still worked in the same environment. And so I was in the middle of doing a reel or whatever. And so I'm going to put that reel in here so you can see it if you haven't seen it. And I was in the middle of doing a reel when he stopped to talk to me. And so it's like, okay, we had understood that we had knew each other. Probably I was in uniform, he wasn't, but that was the place because every place else that he had talked about, I hadn't been. And so he started asking me about what do I do around here? First he asked me about me. I don't know if he asked me about being married. I don't know if I said something about being married. I think I said something about being married because I brought up some more. And that it had been 15 years since I seen her because I told him one of the things I did around there was, I go to comedy shows, I go to concerts, little side show, not little side shows, but little small room concerts. I go to those type of deals, right? I go to like little, I was just telling him the things that I do around this area in order to socialize. And so he started telling me some things he do. And so that's how we kind of got on the subject of some more. And anyway, so he asked me about if I wanted to get out sometime, and I'm like, yeah, I would love to, to get out sometime or whatever. So I'm making a reel and everything, and I'm still making a reel. Well, he wasn't going forward with the conversation. Like, in other words, he wasn't saying, what's your number or anything like that. Now, I'm not saying that I would. I mean, I don't really know him, but you get to know people. But it was one of those things where I wasn't going to say, hey, take down my number and call me and maybe we can. No, that was because he asked a lot of questions. And while I was sitting there doing the reel and I was conversing with him and he asked me about social media and things like that. And so, we was just, talking like he was waiting and I was killing time. And it was just like, but he didn't put his foot over, he didn't press his foot on the gas. What I know about men and this dating, like not just in my 50s, but in general. Let me say this. When men are intentional, they do not stutter, they do not mix up their words, and they do not doggone just beat around the bush. They are very straightforward about what they want to do. They are very intentional. All right, especially at this age. Now, I'm not saying that when they're younger, they really can verbalize or they're really able to just say, hey, it's best to be honest, because they don't really learn a lot of that until people don't learn a lot of that until they're older. But I know that in this age group at 53, men are very intentional. And so those intentional men, they do not stutter their words. They do not just beat around the bush. They say what it is that they want to say, and they mean it, and they are very clear. If they want to get to know you, they tell you. If they want to spend time with you, they make time for you. If it's not one of those things where I'll see if I can. No, they are intentional about it. That's what I know, because why? We know that we have more days behind us than we do in front of us. So we do not have time to be just sitting up here going back and forth. It makes me think about this conversation that I had with a guy the other day that was really funny. We went back and forth on a DM, and literally it was like, okay, let's get the drop, the non-negotiables out the way. And so he told me his, and then when I told him mine, I told him mine, then he told me his, because my things were, okay, are you a man? Have you ever been with a man? Like, I had, those are my non-negotiables. I wanted to know about those things, right? But his was a little bit more in depth, right? His was a little bit more to the character, which was whatever. And so I was like, okay. And so whatever it was I said, he didn't like it. It was something about burning incense and sage. He didn't like that. I was like, whatever, and so he bowed out. But I was like, okay. So what I'm saying is that was a very intentional conversation. Now, do you feel like sometimes people can cut you off? Yeah, but if you know that this is one of your non-negotiables, you don't have time to be negotiating. If this is your non-negotiables, you don't have time to be negotiating. Men are very intentional. And so between those experiences and then experiences that I had today, it just made me think about that. When it comes to this dating in my 50s, now one thing I can say about dating is, my dating was a little bit different once I got divorced, because at this point now, my second divorce was 16 years ago. And when I initially divorced, that husband, he and I dated for a while after. And then there was just something that just kind of happened where I was just in this relationship that I knew it wasn't going anywhere. And it was a very much a part-time relationship, but because I was single for the first time since I was 18, and here I was about 40 at this point, it was, a lot of things was new to me. And so I needed that safe space. And so he provided that safe space for me while I figured things out. And the way I kept things at a distance was, he was, a long ways away from me in terms of miles. And so it wasn't something that you could just say, I'm coming over. No, it had to be planned. It had to be deliberate. And so it was just one of those things where I did that too long, and then I say when I really started to get back out there to date again, there was, relationships. And so I just noticed that things are different. And so by that time I was in my mid 40s and everything. And then I just noticed that things are different. And now that I'm in my 50s, I don't date as much as I did in my mid 40s now that I'm in my 50s, because it's just like the energy that it takes sometimes. And then, it's just a lot. And so that's how I know that the older we get, the more we are really intentional. And so I just say all this to say that, men, listen, there are still women out there that want to be, I don't want to be the one to say, hey, here's my number, or hey, why don't you call me? If you're interested, then say so. The thing that I experienced was someone telling me about, when I was home as well, because it was something that was going on, and I said, well, you can do it like that, because it was a gentleman there. And he said, well, what's wrong with you? You can do it. I said, but I'm not doing it. And so, mind you, I'm only around these people, my family, about every 3 month, every 6 months, every 3 to 6 months. And so he says, well, it was somebody that was a neighborhood friend. And he says, well, whatever happened to women being strong? I said, listen, those are those women. But I'm one of them people, listen, I'm okay with knowing my role. Certain things that I already know I got to do when I'm home by myself. But when I'm out and about, when I am around family, men, whoever, men that I'm dating, whoever, listen, I'm not doing any of that. Now, when I have to, I'm going to do it. Just like when there's things that you have to do as a man, you're going to do it. But then there's things that when a woman is dating a man, he doesn't want to do when a woman is around, right? So she does those things for him, depending on the relationship structure. Again, we can do these things for ourselves, a lot of us, but it's nice to have people do it for you. So when I am in that role of just, being lady, they call it like your soft girl era. No, it's just being a lady. It's what our foremothers and fathers did. My grandmother, she was just pretty around the house. She cooked, she cleaned, she took care of the kids. Now, I know that's not everybody's intention. That's not everybody's goal. That's not everybody's dreams or realities, whatever. But what I do know is those are times where I want to be those things, right? Now, do I know I got to be on the ground over here? Yeah, because I like nice things, okay? But at the same time, I want to be taken care of. I want to be laid back like this. You know what I mean? If I'm in there cooking and there's trash, I'm not about to take that trash out. Excuse me, sir, can you take this trash out? And it's just that simple, And so I just say that, like I said, men, there are women who are still like this, and I'm one of those women, okay? Listen, you have to open the door for me. You have to close the door for me, right? Because I'm going to lean over when I get in the car and I'm going to open the door for you, right? If we're ordering food, whether at a restaurant or wherever, I'm going to ask you what you want, and then I am going to talk to the waiter, especially if it's a waitress. Okay, I am going to be the one to put in our order, because that's my same way as me cooking the food. All right, I don't want you to have to say no, medium rare, no, make sure he has this, no, take that off because he don't eat onions. No, I got you. I got all that. Now, like I said, everybody do things how they do, but I'm just telling you, Yashika, this is how I did it or do it in my marriages and in my relationships. I never put my man out the bed. I don't care if we got into an argument, a dispute. Baby, we could have been rocky. Listen, it could have been World War III up in that house. I have never put one out the bed. Why? Because I know I'm going to turn around and ask him to come back in there. Okay? So this is just how some of the things that I know that I do as a lady, as a woman. And so, men, there are still women out there like that. I do not tie my hair up. And I'm not, listen, and this is nothing to say anything about anything else that women do. I don't care anything about that. But what I do know is there are a lot of us that are Gen Xers or, you know, whatnot, that are still, we are in that crossover age. We in that stage where we still had Big Mama and them. We still had 2 and 3 grandmamas. So we know what to do. We know what it meant to go in there and cook, right? I don't care what you got going on, okay? It was just that simple. And I'm not saying that everybody should be like that. All I'm saying is that men in your 50s, there are still some women out here like myself that are like that. I want you to be intentional and say to me, hey, what's your phone number? Or hey, can I get to know you? I don't want to edge on the conversation and be like, okay, and then when it's time for us to part ways, we shake hands, and then the handshake is lingering because you still trying to tell me what it is you trying to tell me. No, sir. No, sir. No, sir. We too old for that. I think so anyway. I think that we too old for that at this age. I mean, because what you got to lose? I mean, I get it. I get it. And there are men and women who have been rejected and denied and all that. I get all that, okay? But I also know that sometimes we miss our blessing, or we miss our own because we don't take the risk, right? We don't take the risk, right? And yeah, sometimes you got to just put yourself out there. You got to just put yourself out there and say, hey, because I'm not going to be the one to do it. I'm not. And I say that with such sincerity. I can't. And maybe it's something that, you know, that I'm doing that makes them not want to say anything further. But when they're shaking my hand and they're holding on to me, and it's just like a fair weather friend goodbye, you got to do one of these numbers right here when I leave, then it's something you want to say, sir. Okay? It's something you want to say. Okay? I know the signs. I'm old enough to know the signs. Okay? I'm old enough to know the signs. Porch conversation was a little bit different. This porch conversation was a little bit different, okay? Because I wanted to talk about relationships, okay? And like I said, relationships have so many dynamics to it, so many, you know, whatever to it, that all I know is that dating in my 50s, these are my experiences, and honey, I got stories. And if you want to hear more of my stories, let me know down below you want to hear more of my stories, because when I tell you I got stories, honey, because like I said before, I've been divorced and single out here in these streets for 16 years. Okay, now if you don't know, let me just tell you, if you don't know, I met my first husband at 17, married him at 18 while I was going to the Army. We stayed together and divorced, and before our divorce was final, I met my second husband and started dating him. So he and I dated for 4 years, and then we were married for 10 years, and then we dated for another 1.5 years after the marriage. And so I have been single since then, whereas that I hadn't been single since I was 17, okay? I hadn't really been, so I spent my 40s out here as a single woman, honey. So when I tell you I got stories, baby, I got stories, all right? So if you want to hear those stories, make sure you go ahead and subscribe, okay? Let me know down below you want to hear them, all right? And turn on your notifications so when I do post those videos that you want to hear about, I tag you and let you know, okay? So listen, this is Porch Conversations, and my name is Yashika, the fairy godmother, and I will catch you guys in the next video, all right? Bye.